Hey everybody, it's Moonbo here, and welcome back to another episode of Scrap Mechanics Suggested Creations, the series where I take your suggestions and build them in Scrap Mechanic. In this episode, I've got for you guys Wally and Eve. Now, it's kind of funny, I was expecting to finish these builds a little sooner. I thought I was going to have this done yesterday, but I ended up taking a little bit more time on them, and I'm really excited to show them to you guys. I did try my best to create the most resemblance as possible in these builds. Of course, there are limitations in the game of Scrap Mechanic. I'm going to point it out right now. Yes, Wally does not have any tank tracks, so that's unfortunate, but the game just won't allow it. But in this episode, guys, I'm going to start with the Wally and then show you guys the really cool hovering Eve. So these are both some really neat vehicles that you can drive around and control all sorts of wacky stuff. So let's get right into it. So here is Wally, looking kind of sad, but that's alright because he is a really cool build. It's loaded full of really neat features, actually. Now, of course, we're gonna go straight here, so you can see this was the tank track design. I could, okay, in the real game, it's actually really high up. It goes up to probably about where that little dot is. So obviously that was a bit of a miss there, but the thing that I really wanted to be able to do was tuck those wheels in underneath the vehicle so that you could make a little bit of a box shape like you saw in the intro there. But I'll be going inside of this build and showing you guys a little more of the inner workings, but we'll just kind of look around here. You can see there are some interesting slots. A lot of this is design, but there's tons of buttons as well that you can press to do all sorts of nifty stuff. So let's climb under here. So you can see there are some thrusters, there's some slots, there's a whole bunch of stuff, and if I take the connection tool out, you can see there are loads of connections, but really it's ultimately a simple build that just has a lot of bearings inside of it. So I'm basically just going to hop right into the seat here, and we'll bring up the buttons. So you can see this is pretty interesting. If I press W, nothing will happen. But if I press 1, I'll start turning to the left, and if I press 2, I'll start turning to the right. So one thing I do have to kind of point out of this build is that it does not reverse, but it can turn on a dime. As you can see, it has really tight turning, so I mean, yeah, the reverse doesn't work, but as long as you are aware of your surroundings, you should be able to get around pretty easily. And when you have both of them going, it actually moves along pretty fast. Really not that fast though, but I mean, it is a pretty precarious build. If I stop on a dime, as you can see like this, you'll kind of lean forward. But I thought that added a very animated feature to the build. It's almost kind of like cartoony, and you can actually kind of like skid around a little bit. If I hop in here real quick, you can see that if I press the W key, you'll get like a bit of a forward boost on the upper edge, and so that's for climbing hills. So if you're moving along and you get to a hill that you can't quite get up, you press the W key and you'll see the thrusters start helping you move forward. So that's a little bit of assistance there, because you can flip over in this thing. It's not that hard to do. So let's see what else we've got here, though. You can press the 3 key, and you can see the thrusters activating, and so this is essentially how your tires come up. Now, you saw there, it was a little bit of a slow time evolution, but if I press 3 again, and then press 1 and 2 at the same time, it'll actually drive those wheels out. So you can actually do that in the in-way as well. So you can actually press it, and it'll scoop it right up. So basically you have to coordinate that with the 4 keys. So if I just pop these wheels out again and drive up like this, and press the 4 key, you'll see all of that happens at once on the 4 key. One thing I do really want to point out about this build, actually, is if you see his eyes there, unfortunately they are uncovered, but that's just something I couldn't really get around. But if I press the 4 key, you'll see he kind of peeks his head out really quickly. See how he just kind of like checks to make sure everything's alright, and then pops his head out, and he kind of does the same thing when he puts his head away. He kind of stops for a moment, which I'm not sure why, but coincidentally, I just love the effect that it gives. So really neat, and so if you coordinate 3 and 4 together and drive up like this, you'll see everything just kind of quickly happens together, and then you are a very laggy box. But you can really easily just press 3 and 4 again and drive out like that, and you've got no problem driving around again as Wally. Now the other keys are really kind of just, ooh, not that one. Some other things here. I'm not sure what 5 does, but 6 is the key that will rotate your hands like you saw in the intro there. Just a little funny thing I decided to add. I'm gonna actually try and move over here. So I did add the front little box, and obviously you can see there, it does say Wally on the front. And I believe the 5 key, that's what it does. The 5 key opens his back up, and the 6 will rotate, and 7 does that. There you go. There's so many buttons, I kind of lost track. But really cool build. It's full of neat stuff, and I just absolutely love this little quick animation that he's got on the go. But that's enough of Wall-E, guys. Let's go and check out Eve over there. Alright, so here is Eve. Now, I was really scared to make this kind of little hovering robot because of the shape. It was so round, so I tried my best to make some roundish shapes to it. I think I'm pretty happy with it, and if I actually just hop on a lift here and go all the way up to the top, you can actually see, I think, a little bit, yeah, so it's actually dips in just like the actual cartoon, and I used some glass to make a separation here so that you could see through and kind of get the hovering head effect there. So pretty cool. But here we can get inside the Eve by simply pressing this button and crouching in right here. So there are 2 seats. The red one is actually an escape seat, so if you flip this thing over, you can get into that seat and hopefully it'll pop you out. If not, then you might have to break your way through. And the green one up here is the driver's seat. So we could actually just hop right in like so and bring the buttons up. Now this one has a lot of buttons. It's actually kind of overwhelming. Now, if I shut that with the 0 key, you can see we have a great 360 view here of it. And there's actually some lights. Now, if you don't see them, you can actually kind of see it there in the shadow. I have some lights so that when you're hovering, it actually kind of lights up the ground underneath you. So let's go through the keys real quick. So 1 and 2 are the arms, so you can actually move them inside and outside like that, or just up and down. So if you press them together, then you get kind of like a neat little bit of an animation there. But we can tuck those away. And as you can see, actually, there is some glass there to try and simulate them kind of floating there. And 3 and 4 are the left and right eye. So I'm taking advantage of those lights again. These eyes look absolutely fantastic, and you can see them glowing through the glass. So it gives you that really kind of electronic robot feel. So those are really nifty. And 5 and 6 are the hovering mechanisms. So I believe if we go inside here and I press 5, that is the, I think that's the sensor thrusters, and 6 is your normal thrust. So when you turn both of them on, though, needless to say, you start hovering like so. And after a couple little bobs, you'll see it eventually will stabilize and get a pretty stable kind of center of gravity here. And you can actually see the thrusters under the head there. So there's thrusters inside the head, there's thrusters inside the body, of course. So let's see what these buttons are all about for the hovering. And A and D will turn you left and right like so, and really stable. I can actually, this is kind of funny, I can just spin around here like this. I can spread my arms out, I can tuck them back in, and just keep on spinning. Super stable. And look at the sensors down here. So the sensors are actually pointing on, I believe, like a 30-degree angle. And so that was just to give them a little bit more reach and a little bit more of a heads up as to what kind of terrain was coming up at them. Because this thing can actually kind of go up hills as well. Because I did add some manual functions to it. So the 7 key will tilt your head back, and 8 and 9 will lean you left and right like so. And of course that 0 key for the back entrance. And A and D is the left and right turning, like I said, and W is your forward thrust. So here we go, you can see Eve is actually kind of hovering around. You have to sometimes use your manual stabilization to keep on going at a decent pace. But I mean, if you see it going, it works pretty well, despite the most awkward shape imaginable. So let's kind of just hover around here. Try not to awkwardly crash or anything here. Maybe we can make our way back to Wall-E, actually. And if I show you guys, you can see if I'm only using W, A, and D, if you take your time, you'll actually not really have to worry too much about crashing. Alright, we are on our way. Uh-oh, tree. Avoid the tree. There we go. And you can actually kind of stop yourself by pressing the 7 key. So, overall, guys, these builds are absolutely fantastic. I'm going to be uploading these on the workshop this weekend. I'm going to be making a huge upload, so make sure you guys tune into the Steam workshop for Scrap Mechanic. You can definitely join my Steam group as well to stay up to date with all of that good stuff. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'm so happy to be making your suggestions in this awesome game of Scrap Mechanic. So if you do have any more suggestions, make sure you put them down in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. And of course, as well, subscribe for endless Scrap Mechanic. and I will be seeing you guys in the next one.